It's morphing time. Here's your look at the new Threezero Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, FigZero Core Rangers, and Green Rangers 6-Scale Figures 6-Pack. Go-Go Power Rangers, the incredible team of legendary Rangers no one can ever beat. Based on the American superhero television series Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Threezero and Hasbro joined forces to create a series of 6-scale articulated figures based on the classic original series. First, before we get things started, I'd like to thank the folks over at Threezero who kindly provided this 6-pack of Power Rangers that we could have a look at in this review. The Power Rangers on most sites are slated for November's release 2021, and the price point going for these guys, surprisingly if you could believe it, it's about $550. Take that and divide it by how many Power Rangers 6 that you have in this set. That's one of the most affordable prices I've ever seen for a multi-pack of 6-scale figures. With that being said, we're going to go through each one of the Power Rangers, and each one of them will also come with their corresponding weapons, which we'll have a look at as well. Neat thing also about this set is that each of the weapons that come included with the individual Power Rangers can, of course, be combined and make the very powerful Power Blaster. Maybe what we'll do is we'll have a look at that first. And don't worry, by the way, we are going to look at these weapons individually, but I wanted to first get out of the way the Power Blaster. In order to do that, what we're going to do is take the Black Ranger's Power Axe, which we can quickly get a good glance at. It's got some really interesting details to it. Like I said, we will be getting more in depth with the individual weapons in a second, but I want to show you what this looks like when we combine everything together. First, of course, we're going to take the front, or I guess the handle portion of the battle axe. We're going to slide that to the back. And then what we're going to do from there is we're going to take ourselves the power bow that comes included with the Pink Ranger. All you have to do is take the bow, slide it in. There's an open slot right there. I'm hoping the camera is focusing in on that and not necessarily the Power Rangers in the background. But this little slot right here, you're going to take the power bow and you're going to fit it just inside here. Now, the thing about the instructions don't actually show the back string of the bow. It's completely gone. I don't think there is a section where you can actually remove the string of the bow. But you're going to fit that to the front here, and then you're going to take this and slide it, bring it up to the front, and then it's going to connect everything together. And now you've got the front of the bow there. I guess what we could do is leave the power sword for last, because it's simply just going to attach to the back here. I'm going to flip it upside down. It's kind of interesting the way they've done this as well. The power bow actually does have magnets, and I don't know if you can actually see it or not. There's like little slotted in areas there that will then correspond with the other things that we're going to be having a look at. So why don't we then take the Blue Ranger's Power Lance, which consists of 2 parts, and those parts will attach together in a second. I'll show you guys how that works. And what you're going to do is you're going to bring these around, and you're going to fit them into those slots. There's the one right there. Again, I hope the camera's able to focus in on that. And then we'll take the other one and just fit it into the groove like this. And being that they're magnets, first of all, it keeps everything nice and clean and tidy. You don't have to worry necessarily about having to peg something in place where you're then going to be seeing noticeable, that's one problem with it being magnets at least. You're not going to see like noticeable pegs. The problem with it though, as you probably already saw, the magnets aren't super strong. So once you plug them in place, you really don't want to be banging them around. And then from there, once you've got the power lances in place, you're going to take the power daggers that come included with the Yellow Ranger. And again, the same idea. Maybe I'll hold it upright this way so you guys can see a little bit better. Take the power daggers, and again, those are just going to magnetically attach into the slots on the bottom. And we'll do the exact same thing on the other side. Again, like it's really good, effective, that the fact that they did use the magnets. I think of the weapons that you have to attach to the top of the Power Blaster, it's the lances really that don't stay as well in place. I guess providing you don't bang it, you shouldn't have too much of a problem. And while we're almost done, the last thing we'll have to do then is take the Power Sword. And the Power Sword, you basically take the hilt of the sword and it slots right into this opening here. You can decide for yourself to either do this at the beginning of these steps or do it at the last, just making sure you don't bang anything in the process. And once that's slotted in place, once you have all the weapons of the 5 Rangers in place, you've got yourself the Power Blaster. Let me just spin this around so you can see it from all the sides. It does look super impressive. I may not necessarily display, I think, the 5 Rangers all holding the Power Blaster, but the idea that actually Threezero incorporated the means to be able to take each of the individual weapons, and in most cases magnetize them just to the bottom of it, and actually be able to put together the Power Blaster is super cool, and love the fact they were able to do that. From the Power Blaster now to the Power Rangers, I think what I'll do in this video is, instead of looking at each of the accessories and then looking through each of the Rangers, what I'll do first is look at the accessory that goes with that corresponding Power Ranger. Then I'll show you the Power Ranger up close before moving on to the one that's next to it. I've also alternated the heights of these, going from male to female, and so on, leaving what I feel is my personal favorite from the set, the Green Ranger. Of the accessories that come included with the Power Rangers, the first 5 that we're going to be looking at all come included with the very same accessory. I'm going to pick this up right now so you guys can see it up close and personal. Again, each of the 5 Rangers, not counting the Green Ranger, comes included with the Blade Blaster. The Blade Blaster is always one thing I wished I could have had as a kid. Just, well, a 1-to-1 version of this. Now, it has a 2-step process, but first of all, I want to show you guys the detail work that Threezero put into this, right to the fact that they did brand Power Rangers on the end nozzle here. As I said, it does have a 2-step process. Right now, we want to get it into the blade. We're kind of halfway through what it looks like right now, because this is the way you would want to have it when you holster them to the side of the belts. And I'll show you guys that in a second. But to get that full blade effect, you have to actually flip it around. And the blade is stuck inside this little narrow chasm. It's very difficult to actually get in. And I found it was easy just to take like a screwdriver. I'm actually using just a little, I don't know if you would consider this to be the cleaning tool part of a nail clipper set, but I find it's easy just to take that, or I guess you could use a screwdriver as well. And instead of trying to fish this out this way, if you take, again, I'm only using this tool, and you put it in here and you flick it forward, it usually is enough to free the blade from that little cavity. And I seem to do a better job of this earlier. Again, we just flick this forward. There we go. And bring out the blade. Once the blade is out, you can fully extend it. And then that serves to be the blade part of the weapon. I think most of the time when we saw it in the show, it wasn't usually used as the sword here, but instead used as the blaster. To get it into the blaster mode, once again, go back to folding this down into the little ravine. And then what you do is want to extend out the handle. And then you've got the blaster here. The blaster can fit into any of their hands. They do have corresponding hands. It's actually a funny story about the hands. We'll talk more about that in a second. Or again, you can fold things up. And then in this case, we're going to take the Red Ranger. And located on the sides of their belts, they actually do have a little holstered area. Where again, we can just take the Blade Blaster. And that fits just into the side here. They seem to have used like a faux leather material. But it's more than enough to actually hold and house the Blade Blaster inside. I think it's nice the way they were able to do that. The other accessory to come include with the Red Ranger is a very long-bladed power sword, done very nicely in a silver finish. You see the additional carving that they've done to the blade portion of things, and a very elaborate-looking guard and hilt, painted in a very nice-looking, almost dark crimson red, trimmed nicely with the additional gold. You'll also see the motif of the T-Rex. That's something that will be common with all the other Power Rangers accessories that we'll look at in a second. And again, I really like the look of the sword. It's finished nicely on both sides. Now, he does come with, technically, all of the Power Rangers come included with hands. I made the ill mistake of actually just removing all the hands from the trays, and basically I'm left with just a big pile of hands. Currently, as you'll see right now in the sockets of the forums, they all basically have, for the most part, just, I think, one exception, the Blue Ranger. I just haven't changed the hands out yet, but all the other Power Rangers have closed fists. And then you get a whole bunch of extra hands as well. Now, again, some of these hands are specific to the Power Rangers themselves, but unfortunately, being that I just took all the hands from the trays, it's really hard to decipher which ones are which. You can kind of see that some of the smaller gripping hands would be ideal for the Blade Blaster, while other hands, for example, they include gesture hands. They include relaxed hands. Actually, this one does have the thumb pointing down here. And like I said, there's a bunch of different gripping hands of various different openings. And like I said, there's a whole ton of them. Basically, each of the Rangers come included, I think, with 6 hands. So when it's all said and done, you do have quite a lot of hands to work with. One thing you will want to also be aware of as well is that there is a difference in size when it comes to the male to female hands. You can almost, oh, there you can see right there. The female hands are notably smaller than the male hands. Just keep that in mind when it comes to swapping out the hands, because you don't want to accidentally give Kimberly oversized male hands, because that's going to look a little out of place. Now looking at the Red Ranger, we'll start first with his helmet. All of the Rangers' helmets have been molded in plastic, accurately representing the way they look in the series themselves. Their helmets are based on the Zords that they pilot, so of course the Red Ranger will be based on the T-Rex. And again, I think it looks very accurate to the way it does in the series, as we spin it around here. Now, I think I'll dedicate more of the time to look at the costume here on the Red Ranger, being the fact that the costumes are going to be carryovers to all the other Rangers, and simply just going to be the color scheme that's going to vary from one to the other. Again, I'll dedicate a little more time talking about the costumes, and then when we look at the rest of the Rangers, I'll sort of just give you at a glance look at what they look like. The material for their costume is very much of a stretchy metallic spandex. It fits well to their bodies and allows enough wiggle space when it comes to the joints being able to move around, which we'll talk more about in a second. The diamond motif that they've actually added over top of the costumes seems to be applied over top of the fabric that they've used. And you can also see as well, they've stitched up the side as well as stitched the side of the arms also. Now the articulation, if that was something that you guys would be curious about, fairly articulated on these figures. Being that these are what I'm guessing to be glued in place, I would be worried that these would start to peel. But one good thing is at least the torso crunch is a little lower than where the diamond stops. So I don't think I'm going to have as much worries, at least that what I initially may have had, that the diamonds may, through the process of bending, of course, their torsos, would start peeling away from the material. It looks like they've used a pretty strong adhesive to attach this to the metallic costume that they have. All the Rangers also have white gloves that go almost about 3/4 of the way, I suppose, up their forearms. And again, they have the corresponding colors based on their costumes. Like, again, the Red Ranger will have the red diamond motif here. Again, I've decided for the time being just to have the fisted hands in place. But again, you can easily just pop those out with all the multitude of hands that come included with it. All the Rangers also will have a white belt with side holster that will hold the blade blaster. Again, I've just got mine holstered on the Red Ranger for right now. And each one of them will also come with their corresponding morpher. The morpher, in case you are curious, isn't removable. It's glued to the belt, and I wouldn't jeopardize the idea of actually wanting to peel this off the belt. It looks like they're using almost a faux leather material for both the belt and the holster located on the side. Get a little bit further down, again, the carryover of the stretchy spandex material. Again, it works really well with the costume. It works well also with the bodies, I should say, when it comes to moving their legs and moving all the articulation points in the figure that we'll look at in a second. And then when we get down to the boots, I'm happy to report the feet are separate pieces from the top part of the boots. Being if they had encased all of this in one piece, it certainly would have eliminated all the articulation that you would hope to come or hope to have come with a Power Ranger. I'm happy to report again, like the feet are separate and you can easily move them back and forth. I suppose we could really talk about the articulation, which will again be consistent with all these figures for the articulation, at least on the Red Ranger. His head is on a ball joint, so you can rotate the head all the way around. You can move the head down and you can move the head up. Moving the head too far down, I find sometimes pops it out of its ball joint. But again, it's easy to put back in place. You can tilt the head back and forth as well. It seems like there's also a secondary hinge joint. As I'm pushing in the bottom of his neck, it seems like there could be a secondary ball joint working just below the neck collar piece. You can also move the arms out. They seem to be on ratcheted joints. You can bring the arms forward and bring the arms back. There is a swivel on the bicep. Again, that's going to be the case on all the Power Rangers. Seems to be a double hinge on the elbow. And there's the articulation on the hands. One thing I will say, though, about the articulation on the elbow is know exactly where the hinge joint is. When you take these figures first out of the packaging, don't quickly go to start bending their elbows, because you could actually have underneath the costuming the joint going the opposite way, or the joint could be over here, for example. If you start bending the arm, of course, what you're going to risk it is putting pressure against the joint that isn't supposed to be bending in the first place, and you can ultimately break the joint. So when you do take these figures out of the packaging, one precautionary measure I would certainly recommend is first just bending it slightly, or even just putting your finger in between the slots so you can actually feel where that joint should be before you start before you start going forward with bending the joint on these figures. As for the legs split out. You get quite a far splits on these. You can bring the legs forward, you can bring the legs back. A little squeaky, but that's okay. You can swivel at the top of the thigh. The figures seem to have a double hinge on the knee. And when it comes to the feet, they move back and forth, and you can also ankle pivot them as well. Very nice. Just by the way as well, each one of the feet, at least one side of them have been branded with the Threezero logo. And that's the Red Ranger right there. We'll put him back. And now let's move on to the Pink Ranger, the Ranger neighboring right next to him. For the Pink Ranger's accessories, she comes included with the same blade blaster as we had a look at the Red Ranger. And being I felt we spent so much time looking at with the Red Ranger, I'll spend then less time looking at the blade blasters with all the other 4 Power Rangers. But again, it works the same idea. You can just fold that out, and you got yourself the blaster portion of the blade blaster. And then again, you can fold that up and holster it in the side of her belt, which I'll maybe probably do in a second. Put that to the side. The figure also comes included with the power bow, which we've already kind of looked at the beginning when we started constructing the power blaster. On the one side, you can see it does have, let me just spin this around. It says Zayu Ranger. And then on the other side, you can remember it had the little grooved areas where you can then take the other weapons from the Power Rangers to make the power blaster. It does also have, like in the series, the little tiny motif of pterodactyl. Nice little touch on their part. Now the bow does have a working string, and to go along with that, she also comes included with an arrow, which actually is a separate piece. It doesn't look like it attaches anywhere on the bow. I guess it could have had a little tabbing point right there that could have connected to the side, but unfortunately what would have happened is you would have had like a little notch on the side of the arrow. At least she does have like a little groove there, I suppose, where you could take this and just have it resting against that. And she does technically have corresponding hands for the job. She has like this hand right here, which you either can serve as a pointing hand, or you can actually take the arrow and have the feather end of it resting against the fingers if you want to have her drawing back the cord. These, by the way, are plastic, so you will want to be a little bit careful with those. And let's get a closer look now at the Pink Ranger, picking her up. And again, we're going to spend a little less time looking at the costume, just simply because the costume is going to be the exact same on all the other Rangers that we've looked at or will be looking at. Again, the helmet is based on the pterodactyl design. She has a little bit larger of a visor than that of the Red Ranger. But it's a really nice looking designed helmet. I like the additional panel lining that they've incorporated, not only to this one, but all the other Rangers' helmets. And again, these are molded in plastic with some nice additional silver down below for the mouth area. Again, the articulation we'll spend a little bit more time talking about in a second. Quickly looking at her costume, though, it's very much the carryover from what we get with the Red Ranger. Although, the Pink Ranger has the exception to the rule, where she does have the additional skirting. The skirting does go over top of what will still be functioning pants underneath it. So at least they did finish the outfit underneath the skirting. And the skirting does have the additional white trim down below as well. She does have the holster there on the side, which again, I guess you could take the blade blaster. We'll just fit that into the holster right now. More than enough space accommodating to fit that in place. And she does also have the Morpher, which once again has the pterodactyl logo. The gloves will be the same, and again, I've just kept the closed fists in the hands for the time being, but again, you can swap those out and have her displayed with the bow and arrow, which maybe I'll do in a second. I think the material that they use works really well for these figures. It gives them a nice glow, especially when you've got light shining on them. Again, when it comes to Kimberly's boots, similar to what we get with the Red Ranger, 2 parts, so like the top part of the boot is a separate piece from the lower part of the feet. So again, you got a lot of additional articulation there. I really like the fact, I know I probably had already said this earlier in the review, but I do like the fact that they kept the boots as 2 separate pieces. If they had made it 1 boot, still you would have the problem of the boots being contained, or at least the feet being contained, where you really wouldn't be able to get as much mileage. And especially for a character like a Power Ranger, you really would want to have a lot of posability when you be able to pose these guys on your shelf. By the way, I may have had a bit of a crush on the Pink Ranger growing up. Moving now on to the Black Ranger and his accessories. One accessory you may not see right now, and I've just taken the liberty of moving it off screen. He comes included with his blade blaster. I know I spent so much time already twice talking about this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. Just going to say that he does include one. So does the Yellow Ranger. So does the Blue Ranger. Instead, what we'll focus in on is his power axe. Now, this makes up the majority of the power blaster. How many times I'm going to say power in this review? One thing you'll see on the end of the power axe is the motif of the mastodon. The power axe is really nice. I don't know if I would necessarily display it as necessarily an axe. I guess you could if you want to. But instead, being that it does have a trigger on the end of it, I think I'd be more inclined to slide this forward and display it more like an actual weapon. Well, not a weapon like this. It does have some nice detailing done to it. You can see some additional scratchings of silver. And again, that mastodon logo is presented on both sides of it. It's certainly a lot bigger and bulkier, but one good thing is it's not die-cast metal, so it's still fairly light for him to hold in hand. It does have some additional nice yellow that's been added into it, not only to the handle portion, but also to the main head of the axe, as well as the back end of it too, which serves also as the blaster. Put that to the side. Let's have a look at the Black Ranger, who may actually be a little harder to grab because I put him further back here. Let's go ahead and pick the figure up so you guys can get a closer look at it. Following again with the suit of the Mastodon, you can see that that motif gets carried over to his helmet. And it has some really nice coloring to it. Although, to be fair, it's primarily an all-black costume with an all-black helmet. But the additional silver accents of the tusks on both sides, as well as the gold eyes that they incorporate to the top, the snout that comes across the front of his visor, as well as the additional silver that they put down below in all the Power Rangers, still looks really nice on this figure. I gotta imagine that they are using the same bodies consistently across the board, even when we get to the larger, slightly larger because of the shoulder pad of the Green Ranger. I've still got to believe that they are using the same bodies across the board. The material, though different in color, is still the same type of spandex material that we looked at both with the Red Ranger and the Pink Ranger. So again, we won't spend a lot of time looking at that. He does have still the morpher of the Mastodon down below, not removable again. It's part of that faux leather material that they use for both the belt as well as the holster on the side to hold the blade blaster. If you are in case curious, can you open up the costumes? It doesn't seem like you can. They have seamed shut the back of it, so there's really no way to access the body underneath it. It's fully contained. Again, one of the worries that you may have then being the fact it's a self-sealed in figure, seamed also from the sides of his arms, again from the back and down the legs as well. If anything happens to break on the inside of the figure, you're going to be having a little more of a problem trying to get access to that. So you definitely want to be careful, especially when it comes to, again, the joints. I know I mentioned this already. I think actually with the Black Ranger, when I took him out of the packaging, his elbow may have been facing the opposite way. Good thing I actually ran my finger along the little grooved area where I would have expected the elbow to be. So I already knew right away that felt flat to me, flat where it is right now. And then I knew to twist the arm around. Of course, when you're twisting the arm around, you're going to have to then compensate for the fact that the fabric's going to get a little wound up along with it. But now at least I've got it facing the right way, and the figure can actually bend his elbows appropriately. Overall, again, like a nice looking helmet. Consistently clean and painted very well on Threezero's part. Again, while we may not spend a lot of time now with the other Rangers that we're looking at, again, when it comes to more of the material, again, I'm really liking what they've done with this line. And to think again that you're getting 6 Power Rangers for what, a little over $500 is just absolutely crazy to me. Going back now to a slightly smaller build with the Yellow Ranger. The Yellow Ranger seems to be sharing the same body as that of the Pink Ranger. In fact, we can take the Yellow Ranger. I'm just going to put her sideways. I do find her feet, of all the feet with the Power Ranger, seems slightly looser. So we're just going to make sure that she doesn't fall over. I'm going to take then the Pink Ranger. I just want to put them shoulder to see, in fact, if they are the same height. And it seems to be the case. I think why the Pink Ranger seems a little notably taller is probably the shape of the helmet, as you can see right there. The Pink Ranger also benefits from having that unique skirting, whereas the Yellow Ranger is closer to resembling more the Red Ranger, the Black Ranger, the Blue Ranger, and I guess to some extent as well, the Green Ranger. Just get the Pink Ranger to stand here. None of these figures, by the way, include display stands. We are, of course, looking at the 6-pack, but I would imagine the singular individual releases of these Power Rangers aren't going to come include with display stands either. Would have been nice to see them include display stands with, again, the name of the Power Ranger presented on the front of it, but I don't think Threezero tends to do a lot of display stands. Not until you get to the more larger, more elaborate robots and stuff that they do, something of which we've also looked at on the channel. For the accessory to come include with the Yellow Ranger, again, you get the Blade Blaster. I could spend a whole lot of time showing you guys that, but she gets that. The figure also comes included with a couple of power daggers. I kind of like these. These ones are really neat. Not only are they painted very bright yellow, but as well, they've got the saber tooth. Hopefully you guys can see it. They're the saber tooth motif on both sides. We can twist this around. The blades actually kind of remind me of the power sword, in which they've etched in some additional detailing on the blades themselves. Nice looking weapons, though. Very similar also to the Blue Ranger's lances, which I guess we can kind of just pick up for a second, a bit of a teaser of what we're going to be looking at in a second. Similar types of handles, although the Lancer notably is a little bit further wider because it has the side blades sticking out. Again, we'll look at the Blue Ranger in a second. Picking up now the Yellow Ranger, getting a closer look at her head sculpt. Based again on the saber-toothed tiger motif. So again, you've got the tusks coming down the front of the visor, some additional silver that's added to the nose. Really, again, love commending, really, Threezero's work when it comes to panel lining these helmets. It really does help to bring the details out. And we spin this around so you can see it from all the sides. Now again, like her costume doesn't have the additional skirt that the Pink Ranger has. Her outfit is, again, closer to more the male characters. But again, like the body that they've used, it seems to be the same body that they used for the Pink Ranger. She does have some additional sculpting that they've incorporated to the chest area, so she's a little fuller there than the male characters. And like the other male characters, she does, again, have that diamond additional. Again, it's kind of like a plastic material that they've, what seems almost glued to the fabric itself. The fabric, again, is a nice metallic, in this case, like almost a honey yellow. And then she does have, like the others, the belt. I'm apologizing in advance if the camera keeps wanting to focus in on the things behind it. But you can see there's the Power Rangers Morpher with the saber-toothed tiger logo on the front. And again, she's got the holster there on the side to hold the blade blaster. This one I do like. One problem I do have with the Yellow Ranger of all the ones I've looked at is that this one has a little bit more looser when it comes to her ankles. Still, it's not to the point where the figure's going to be toppling over, but I certainly, when it comes to putting her on something, I have to make sure I kind of compensate, just kind of readjust the feet, because she has gotten a little wobbly on me. I wonder if I can actually go in there and tighten up that joint somehow. I guess seeing as we haven't done it in a while, we can look again at the articulation. And again, articulation on these figures are going to be the same. The head rotates, once again, all the way around. You can have the head looking down and head looking up. Once again, it seems like there's two ball joints, one there, and it feels like, once again, there's more of a gap right here around the neck. So it really makes me think that there's a secondary ball joint that they're using at the base of the neck here. You really won't be able to move it too much. But again, it seems like there's something in there. Once again, the arms come out. The arms seem on ratcheted joints. I may have already mentioned that already. The arms rotate back and forth. Double hinge on the elbow. This was another figure that I had to really find the joint. It seems like the forearm is a little on the looser side, but again, she's got that double hinge on the elbow. And again, the hands rotate back and forth. Upper torso ball joint. It's not even so much upper torso. Actually, the ball joint seems more about mid-waist area. Let's just bring her belt down a little bit. Legs split out. Again, you can bring the legs forward and back, swivel at the top of the thigh, double hinge on the knee. You can really see how that joint is working underneath the fabric. And while she doesn't have any articulation because the boot is a separate piece, she most definitely has articulation here in the ball joint. Again, a little looser on this figure, but still get the wide range of motion as we have already looked at with the other Power Rangers so far. Up next is Billy, the Blue Ranger. He comes included once again with the blade blaster, which can again be held in his hand either as a blade, either as a gun, or if you don't want to have them displayed in any of their hands, you can also have them holstered on the side of the belt. I know, we've already talked about that a couple of times already. The figure also comes included with a couple of Power Lancers. And I think of all the things coming included with this, short of maybe the sword that comes included with the Green Ranger, these might actually be my favorites. The detail work on these is just fantastic. The additional silver paint, not to mention as well the little motifs of the Triceratops, and providing the camera's going to focus in on that. Camera's having a bit of a tougher time just simply because, again, we've got so much stuff going on in the background that wants to distract the camera. But again, you can see there's the Triceratops on both the sides. Now, the Blue Ranger can either wield these individually in hand, or the neat thing about it, like the show, you can actually take them and attach them together. One side you'll see there's a visible hole, the other side a visible peg. Just attach the two together, and you can have them wielding it like this. You can also go one better and take these and extend them out. And they extend by maybe about double the length. The one problem I have, though, with the Lancer, there's the fully extended version. Let's actually extend this side out completely and reattach them. On mine specifically, and I just again want to stress the idea that it's on mine, I've noticed that this part, the end of the handle, has come loose. I'm going to have to maybe take a little bit of glue and glue that in place, because again, the idea is it's supposed to attach with these two connecting points. And like I said, somehow along the ways, it's, I guess, taking out the packaging, it was like that in the beginning. It has, like I said, detached. But at least you've got a longer wielding melee weapon, a great way to display with the Blue Ranger. Representing the Triceratops, a personal favorite dinosaur of mine growing up, we have next the Blue Ranger. I'm going to spin this around so you can see the helmet from all the sides. Paint is super clean again on these helmets. Now, they didn't really have to do too much from a paint standpoint of painting the helmet the color. It looks like they probably have just used that plastic to start off with. But the fact that then they have gone in there and painted those panel lines, it's really those little touches of detail that make the helmets look like their television counterpart. Triceratops, 3 horns. He has 3 horns, 2 on the side and 1 in the middle, painted nicely in the silver, with some additional gold here on the sides for his eyes. As for, again, Billy's outfit, it's pretty much going to be the same as what we saw with both the Red Ranger, the Black Ranger, and what we will be looking at shortly with the Green Ranger. So again, you've got the diamond motif. More a whole diamond on the center and half diamonds on the sides. It's again been sewn in place. So even though it looks like they've glued this part over top of the material, they have then sewn over top of it to finish off the side of the costume. For his emblem, of course, his morpher is that of the Triceratops. I'm hoping the camera's able to pick that up okay. I did notice, though, like the belts seem a little on the loose side, and they probably have allotted for a little extra clearance. I mean, you can really notice it when you shift the belt up and down, one of which it does hide a very noticeable seam line right here, where 2 halves, the lower half of the costume was sewn to the top half. That already hides that, so that's nice. But I think they also made it a little bit looser, too, so when it comes to the articulation of the figure, the belt is sort of going to go along with moving of the joints, because if it was too tight, it may run the risk of breaking. Speaking of which, though, spinning around so you can see it from the belt, the back of the belt, they've actually put this little overlaid piece of that faux leather material. If I just move it out of the way, you can kind of see how the belt has been strapped in. And then they basically just put this piece over top of it to cover it off and finish it off. That looks nice. I like the way they've done that. Again, you've got the white gloves here on the side, swapping out the red that we looked at earlier with Jason, instead now putting in the blue for Billy. I've got the one relaxed hand in there for the time being. I've got the closed fist there on the other side again. Swapping out the hands is super easy. And we get a little bit lower down. Once again, we got ourselves the boots. Again, all plastic, 2 parts. So again, I like the fact that they've done that. And I got to say, like, the blue really works well on this figure. All of the material that they're using for these Power Ranger figures, again, like, it looks like a really good quality material. Very stretchy. It has a lot of give to it, certainly, when it comes to the articulation of the figure. And especially when you have studio lights. I'm just noticing it right now with the studio lights shining down on these. It really does nice to reflect off of it. It gives it that nice reflective surface look.
Last, but by no means least, is Tommy the Green Ranger, my personal favorite of the set of 6 that we've looked at. While Tommy doesn't benefit from having the blade blaster that the other 5 Rangers would have, he actually gets himself some pretty interesting looking accessories. Let's have a look at those right now.
The first one we'll have a look at is the Sword of Darkness, a very imposing looking blade. It looks like it's been molded possibly in silver plastic rather than actually painting it silver, but they have gone in there and actually painted some additional details in gold. Looks like they've dry brushed over top of it. It's a neat looking sword, and one thing I do like about it is that Threezero did add a real tasseled string on the end of it, along with a couple of extra beads too. It just brings something different to it as opposed to just molding it all in plastic. Even though it's a really nice looking weapon, it's not the thing I'm going to display with the Green Ranger. Rather, instead, the figure comes included with the Dragon Dagger. Of course he does. Getting a closer look at the Dragon Dagger right now, providing the camera's able to focus in on that. Just an exquisite looking piece. It has the valves on the top done in gold, some nice gold accents added in there as well. I love the green that they've used in the interior of the blade. Of course, the silver blade on the outside. The valves don't push down or anything like that. But he does at least come included with a hand for holding the Dragon Dagger. Of all the hands, because there are a lot of hands to go around, you actually get yourself, I think, this hand right here, where you can take the handle of the Dragon Dagger, slide it into the hands, like that. And you can actually have it look like he's got his hands right on the valve, as of course he's playing the Dragon Dagger. Never could really understand how Tommy was able to play the Dragon Dagger, being the fact he was wearing a helmet, but it's certainly a nice touch to see that they included it. And it would feel really absent if the Green Ranger didn't have it. And if you don't want to have the Dragon Dagger in his hand, I don't know why you wouldn't want to. He does actually have a holster located on the side of his belt. You have to fit this down first, and then he has like a little elastic cording that goes around the handle. I actually find like this part, this little elastic, is a little difficult to get around. You have to bring it further up the holster and then be able to stretch it across. I feel every single time I'm doing this like it's going to break, but you just fit that around the handle like this, and it keeps the Dragon Dagger secure in place. Getting a closer look now at the Green Ranger, again, my favorite of the 6 that we've looked at over what I feel to be a very long video. Apologies for that. I wanted to spend as much time talking about these figures as I possibly could, because I really think that Threezero has done a fantastic job on all of these. Easily by far my favorite is the Green Ranger. I love the look of his helmet. Again, he's got the sculpted in teeth painted nicely in the silver. The mouth plate as well, done in an equally similar silver, if not the very same silver that they've used. They got the gemstone done in the top there in a very nice crimson metallic red. Darker eyes on either side, and they've also panel lined the helmet so very nicely. If I was to maybe pick up these figures individually, because that's something that's also available as well, I think the first one I would have picked up would have been easily the Green Ranger. Just love the way he looks. Now, the Green Ranger would have traditionally a regular Power Ranger's body. The one thing that does make him separate and different from the other Power Rangers is the fact he does have the Dragon Shield, which is not the softest of plastics. I actually would have expected this to be a little bit more of a softer plastic, but it's actually more of a rigid plastic. It's got a little bit of give, just a little bit, but it does harness around his body. I don't think I would take the risks of trying to remove the Dragon Shield and say put it on the Red Ranger. I would probably just leave it on. Now, I think they are actually releasing a Red Ranger with the Dragon Shield. Correct me if I'm wrong. It does have some nice additional panel lining that they've added to the center area of the shield. Again, it really does complete the look of the Green Ranger. He does have the bands that, of course, go up further on his arms. Now, these are separate, so sometimes as you move the figure around, you'll notice that these arm bands will sort of droop back down. You may want to just bring them back up. And the further you get them up the bicep, the better and secure in place they seem to be. His gloves are a little bit different than the other Power Rangers. Gone are the more diamond shape, in favor of more like triangular green shapes that are on the tops of the glove. The glove is actually very similar, but this one does have the additional gold trim along the top there as well. And he also does have the Morpher there with the Dragon logo, the Dragon Zord logo, and it says Power Rangers, of course. Paint is so good on these, especially for, again, the Morphers being that size. And we'll get a little bit further down. I like also the coloring that they went with for the green on the Green Ranger here. It's a nice, very rich green, almost like an emerald green. And because it's got almost like a very metallic sheen to it, the light really does a nice job of just bouncing off the costumes. Something I already mentioned earlier in this review. We get a little bit further down on the figure. His boots, again, are a little bit different, but made up of the same construction. So like the lower foot is a separate piece from the top of the boot. And the boot, again, very easy to move when it comes to the articulation on the figure. Speaking of which, let's have a look at the articulation now on the Green Ranger. It would be the same. I know we've already covered off articulation several times already in this review. One last time. The head does look up, does look down, and you can also move it back and forth. Still, again, I feel like there's that ball joint right at the bottom. It's a little more hidden here underneath the Dragon Shield. But again, nice range of motion when it comes to the heads. The arms move out. Don't be alarmed, by the way, by that clicking. It seems like they've incorporated ratcheted joints into the shoulders. You can also bring the arms forward, bring the arms back, not too much. You will want to be careful, I think. You don't want to bring the arms too far back to the extreme, because I feel like maybe long-term use, that may start ripping the seam right here. But again, if you just give a little bit of, maybe comfortably, I would say go with a 45-degree angle. Don't go any further than that. You can bring, again, the arms forward, again, the arms back, swivel at the bicep, double hinge on the elbow, swivel on the hands. I know we already touched base on this already. Upper torso ball joint. Something also I noticed with the Green Ranger, something I maybe didn't notice when we looked at the other Rangers, it seems like they have also a waist swivel. So there's a little bit extra there that you can also move back and forth. Let's get the holster out of the way. One good thing also about these holsters is that you can easily move them out of the way. That also works with the Blade Blaster holsters too. You can just easily shift them around if they're in the way of things. You can bring the legs out. Once again, you can bring the legs forward and back. A little, again, about that bit of that squeaking. Rotation on the top of the thigh. Double hinge on the knee, a little squeaky there as well. You can technically rotate as well the boots, just a little bit, and you can also move them up and down this way as well. Now, sometimes I've noticed with these Power Rangers, if you bring the feet too far down, they seem to want to pop out of their ball joints, but being the makeup of them being ball joints after all, they're quite easily popped back into place. A bit more of a lengthier video this time around, but that's certainly what happens when instead of just looking at one 6 scale figure from Threezero, you look at 6 instead. A big thank you, though, to the folks over at Threezero for providing the samples of the brand new Mighty Morphin Power Rangers FigZero Core Rangers, as well as the Green Rangers 6-scale figure 6-pack. If you guys are interested in picking these ones up for yourself, again, Threezero are planning to release these individually, and I think the price point are going to be about $100 a piece. Or if you want to go full in and fully invest in getting the full 6-pack, then these again are slated to release November 2021, so this month right now, for $550. Again, you just have to stop and think about that for a second. 6 6-scale figures of the Power Rangers for $550. Again, if you ask me, Threezero set the bar of where I think 6-scale figures should be. Some companies are charging way too much for when it comes to 6-scale releases. Threezero are usually releasing these figures at about $100 to about $150. Or again, if you're looking to get all 6 Power Rangers, $550. Can't beat that at all. What do you guys think of this figure line? Let me know down below in the comments section, and let me know which of the Power Rangers you like the most of the 6 figures that we had a look at. I still personally a little more biased towards the Green Ranger, but let me know down below in the comments section. And hey now, if you are new to this channel, you're enjoying all the content you're seeing, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you turn on the bell notification, and make sure you keep your peepers peeled because there will be more Threezero reviews coming your way in the not so distant future. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.